Welcome to Nifnex TV Perth. My name is Zeeshan Pasha and I'm your host. We've got a very interesting case study that we're going to look at today, which is about starting up a small business. So the panel members are Sonja, Jamie and Daniel, who are going to look at their areas of expertise and help you start up your business. Sonja, Jamie, Daniel, welcome. It's another exciting case study and a challenge. Excited?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a quite interesting topic. I mean, people are not aware how to start up a business. And I was quite mind-boggled about that. But I guess it is a concern that entrepreneurs or businesses or people generally have on what they should do to start up a business. So we've got the experts here to actually get started and get the ball rolling for the people out there who want to start up a business. So can we go around just introducing ourselves and then we get into the case study? Is that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Sonja, we're going to start with the ladies first.
Thank you, Zeeshan. I'm Sonja Pilkington and I'm with Asset Financial Accounting. We provide accounting and bookkeeping services to mainly small and medium enterprises, and we've been doing that for the last 4 years. But I've been working with smaller enterprises for quite a substantial time, longer than that.
Excellent. Daniel?
I'm Daniel Jovevski. I'm the CEO and founder of switchmyloan.com.au. We help people save money on their home loans online by pre-negotiating rates with large banks and then passing those savings directly to consumers. I'm also involved in mentoring young students who want to choose entrepreneurship as a career choice.
Brilliant. Jamie?
Hi, Jamie Vine, Liberty Executive Officers. My background is, I've been in the serviced office industry since 1997. Appreciate I don't look old enough to have done that, but working with young entrepreneurs, startup businesses, and people who are trying to establish a business in a new market.
Yeah, brilliant. So should we maybe stick with yourself, Jamie?
Okay.
So how should a person actually get started with their business?
I mean, in general terms, I can talk from my own experience when I started Liberty. It was vital for me to have quite a detailed plan, and I know that that's a lot of what Daniel has experience in as well. To work things through, and I actually started with the end game. So I worked out what I wanted Liberty to become, and what it will become in the future, and worked back in a logical order from that to work out an achievable timescale.
Yeah.
And it just, it just gets you to focus the mind a little bit, and it also helps you in terms of structure as well. So I know Sonja will talk about that.
Should we address the structure in that case, Sonja? I think what sort of structures are available, and what should people do, and where should they go to set up their business?
Most people would start off with being a sole trader, mainly because they just fall into it by accident, because they just don't know any other option. Yeah. Or sometimes they're going, well, it's myself and my buddy over here that would like to start a business, and they happen to fall into a partnership. Only later on do they then talk to their accountants or financial advisors and get advice on either becoming a trust or a company. Yeah. What they really should be doing first, once they decided what their business structure is also look at a business name. Yeah. Many times people look at it and going, oh, I've got this great name. They don't bother doing the homework, and then they found out that the name has already been taken. Or they've started using the name, and then they get this wonderful letter from some legal people just saying, this is a trademark name, please stop using it. So I would say to people, once you've got that huge concept, Google the name. Google it, see what comes up. Go on ASIC's website. Make sure it's not taken, so you can actually have that first dibs on that business name.
So the business name registry, that's a different sort of a website to ASIC, but ASIC has got more company registered, is that correct?
No, you do your business name registration on ASIC's website now, and you do your ABN registration on the Australian Business Register website. Okay. But yeah, the first thing you should do is decide the company or your business structure, then the business name, which is on the ASIC website, and then go on to the Australian Business Register and register your ABN.
Perfect. But I guess there's a lot of situations where someone's working full-time and they've sort of cut down the hours. They're going, okay, I need that income before I can start up a business, or to start up the business. So they're probably working somewhere and registering their business. So structure comes in handy because, of course, the income brackets that they're going to fall into, considering they've got a high income paying sort of a job, and then the business starts to make a few dollars, and then it's all going to be individual tax rather than business tax or company tax. Is that correct?
Again, that depends on how they set up their structure. If they're trading in their as a sole trader, all the losses they have will be carried forward into future years, and depends on the nature of the business,
Yep.
as well as what the type of business is. So continuity of business and business type helps them to actually deduct those losses in future years. If that's the only thing they do, obviously they won't pay tax in their own name. So they must be careful, and they probably need to get some professional advice on what the tax implications would be if they have a loss, and they probably will be making losses in the first year or so.
Yeah. So it's the best thing to go to an accountant,
Go to
get
accountant.
professional heart-to-heart sort of conversation going, this is my plan, this is how much I'm planning on earning, for example, and then work out what's the structure that suits them best, especially if other people are involved, whether
Definitely,
it's your
definitely.
partner or other people.
Definitely, because you don't want to get it wrong and then try and pay somebody to try and fix it. It's more expensive trying to fix it afterwards than doing it right from the beginning and getting good advice. And good advice is not your buddy and over a beer. That's not the best advice to get. Pay somebody to
Pay
get some
someone to-
good advice.
So once you've reached the business, you've got the structures in place, and then we probably look at but the business plan, entrepreneurship, the mindset, Daniel?
Yeah. So going on what you were discussing with Sonja about having this full-time job and then moving to running a business full-time, I think that process can often, the planning process of getting your business plan together kind of gets put on the wayside while you're too busy acquiring customers and generating revenue for the business and not spending so much time on the planning phase. And the old saying is people don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. And this is typically true for a lot of people who start their businesses initially on back of the envelope type calculations. So the planning stage, I think, is very crucial, and what Jamie did was work backwards, and I think that's a very important step. Some things I would add to that are determining what you stand for, what your values of your company are, what's your mission and your vision and your values. And then once you've got all those things determined, you can basically have a rough sketch of what the business is about and where you're going to take it moving forward. And then as far as planning, I think the debate is really out there on how formal do you want to get, in the sense that do you type up this 50-page document and refer to it once in a blue moon, or do you have something that's short and brief? And I guess there's no quite right answer. But there's a book that I read called Business Model Generation by Alexander Osterwalder, which Zeeshan will include in the bottom of the link, where you have this canvas where you have 7 core elements of how a business operates. And the whole theory about the business model canvas is that you use post-it notes to describe certain things such as your customer segments, your revenue sources, your expenses. And that way, when you're in that brainstorming session, you can decide, okay, well, that sticky note actually belongs here. And it's quite a dynamic and fluid process, rather than having, again, this 50-page document that you refer to very sparingly. So that's where I would begin.
Okay.
So where would somebody go to get that kind of advice? Would they come and see you? Or?
Well, I mentor students who are in that sort of start-up phase and doing a business model canvas, but all the information is available online and it's free as well. So that's the great thing, is that you don't have to go out there and spend too much money on expensive consultants to tell you about how you should run your business. You can pretty much work out that process on your own online, and it's free.
Yeah. I also find that sometimes good to have somebody that you can bounce ideas off, either somebody that's been in the business for a long time or somebody that can just point you in the right direction. And yeah, those business plans can sit on the shelf and gather dust forever.
Yeah.
But unless you make it yours, you're not going to follow it.
I think one of the biggest failings of small businesses is that they've come generally from an employment position where they were accountable. And whilst there's nothing more accountable than being your own boss, nobody's asking you the questions that used to get asked. And if you've got a good plan in whatever format that suits you, you can refer back to that plan and measure yourself against what you thought you would be doing. And planning is ultimately, to a certain extent, there's got to be some guessing in there, but it's got to be educated guessing. And at least you can sort of work out if you're still on track and have the discipline to measure yourself against something. Because without a plan,
Yeah.
You just work hard and you're tired.
I also find that if you have a plan and measure yourself against it, you can also celebrate those good achievements.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got something. I achieved whatever I set out to do. Maybe my goal should be bigger.
But it can also get you to redirect yourself earlier in the piece if it's not, you know, if you're starting to divert off course a little bit. If you catch that early through self-measurement and through using a plan,
Yeah.
you know, then you've got the ability to correct that much earlier in the piece, which is a lot easier to do than when it's too late.
The practicality of it, though. I mean, I won't name the people that I've interviewed in the who are pretty big businessmen in Perth, who've made it happen, and they're pretty national as well. Some of them have got international. I've said, okay, how did you sort of start the business? And did you have a business plan? They're like, no. None of them had a business plan.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm not sure if it's the right time to bring it up, but we might as well. So I don't have a business plan to start with. The only reason I came up with the initial business plan was because I wanted to get some money from the bank.
Yeah.
So I'm going, okay, but again, that's not something that businesses or the banks look at very favorably anyway, unless it is, you know, really detailed and stuff. So how important is a business plan, and do people generally have it these days from what you've seen?
Well, a couple of important things that you mentioned there, Zeeshan, about having a business plan for the bank. I think the bank looks at your business in a completely different way that you look at your own business, and especially around cash flow projections and things like that. What they want to do is figure out the model, the business revenue model, and how you're going to generate income.
Yeah.
It actually has been tested. Is it out there in the marketplace, or is it a completely greenfield new idea that hasn't been tested before? And going back to what Jamie mentioned about the pivot or changing strategy, your initial assumptions, if you test them and they don't work out, at least you know that you've tested that and you can move on to perhaps another focus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the banks will want a detailed business plan outlining the risks of the business, the income side of things, your personal background, and where you want to take the company. And most importantly, I think what banks look for is security. So, you know, what type of assets or collateral you're going to put behind the business in the initial stages.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not prepared to put anything behind the business, the bank just says, why should I? So unless you're prepared to put something in,
Yeah,
the
that's
bank's
right.
not going to give you money either.
When I first got to Australia, I kept hearing this phrase, skin in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that before, but it's very true.
Oh, very true.
Yeah.
So you must have come across a lot of the businesses who come into Liberty and
Yep.
saying, I've just set up the business and I want to start using more
Yeah.
virtual and serviced office. So a lot of people don't know what serviced and virtual offices are.
Yep.
So would you mind sort of explaining
Absolutely,
a bit more?
absolutely. Look, I mean, when people are starting a new business, one of the most difficult things, and we talked about this prior to filming, is around getting some traction, getting your first client base or your initial client base, and that ultimately is getting you credibility. And once you've got credibility, it becomes much easier to acquire new clients and replace clients that have finished with your services. What a serviced office can do, or a virtual office, is provide you with that level of credibility very early on. I mean, you can present a very professional image to the outside world.
Yeah.
You can have a CBD business address, you get your phones answered, 8 till 6, Monday to Friday, and you never miss a call. So there's not this reliance on chasing this entrepreneur around who might be in meetings, might be in the middle of something, and you can't get hold of them. And there's not this kind of, well, where is this person? How do I get hold of them if I do acquire their service and I'm not happy, or I need more, or I need less, or whatever? How do I get hold of them? And if it's difficult for people to contact people when they're trying to acquire the business, they become even more worried about how they might need to contact them once they're a client.
Yeah.
So, I mean, virtual offices allow you to do that from home. You can have a mailing address and a telephone number, voicemail, and all the call answering. You can still book and use the facilities on an hourly basis if you're in the city, so it allows you to remain extremely streamlined, which will please banks and your accountant if you're trying to work out, what your overheads are. And then it allows you to evolve, and as the business grows, you can then step up and move into an office, and maybe as you start to maybe employ people, you've got a base where you can work from.
Yeah.
all of that can happen in good time, and throughout that process, from a home worker through to having a whole floor with us, your phone number stays the same, your address stays the same, and you've got consistency and continuity, which allows you to present a very sort of established business, even in the very early days. So that's, I guess, trying to link it to the subject matter, that's really what we do.
So that's the initial forms of marketing itself.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of more established businesses use our facilities to test the new market. So we get a lot of companies from over east or international who will take a virtual office for 3 months and do some marketing. See what happens before they commit to any real... Absolutely.
Yeah, so what the business model canvas does is it allows you to stick post-it notes on these 9 key segments. So your key partners, such as if you're a business that deals with a distribution company or people that you're partnered with to on-sell their products, you can list them down here. Key activities of the business, what are you going to be doing day to day, what is the core focus of the daily activities, key resources, obviously things like of a financial nature, cash, lines of credit, people, technology, all those things can go there. The middle one, value proposition, I think is the most crucial because it basically differentiates what you have to offer from your competition. And if you don't know what your value proposition is to your clients, then your clients certainly won't know as well. So addressing that there is really great. Customer relationships, this can include how involved you want to be with your customers. Is it a one-touch service where you speak to the customer once, or do you want to have long-term relationships with these customers? So you address that there. Segments, this can include things like demographics, so age, income, marital status, basically the core audience that you want to target with your business. Channels, so this can include the way you're going to distribute your product or service. So that would be through either third parties, through yourself, through the internet, through the telephone, by mail. And the 2 last boxes basically are probably the most crucial ones, things like your cost structure and also your revenue streams. So here you'll be able to detail and put down some rough notes on the post-it notes on exactly what your core assumptions are about the business from a financial perspective. So once you have everything laid out, the great thing, as I mentioned before, is that you can either scrap an idea or add a new one in. And it's that sort of dynamic nature of the business model canvas that I think is really good. And we've personally got one. It's sitting on our office wall, and it allows us to refer back to it and change it if something needs to be changed for whatever reason.
It could apply to any sort of business,
absolutely,
or mainly for startups.
That document can be used for so much more than just business model, just to say, well, here's my planning document. You could use that to do your procedure manuals. Same thing, how do I do X, Y, and Z? You could use it for risk management, saying, well, what are my risks? What are my mitigating factors? How can I manage my risk? I see that as a huge document. It's so much more than what a planning document. And you can just change the heading at the top, but it addresses everything that a business owner should think about and should consider.
Absolutely.
And so much more. So
brilliant.
There
you go. So, and the link of it, we'll put that on the YouTube in that case. That takes us to the next topic of, they've started the business, they've got to consider having a bank account to keep their personal and the business stuff separate, hopefully, and many people don't.
Yes. That's probably one of the next steps. Once you finish your ABN, probably the next thing you need to do is go to the bank, open a business bank account. Even if you're trading as a sole trader, just have another one. It gets so messy if you're buying the pizza and you put in your health membership or your whatever other membership through it. Keep it separate and keep it clean. It makes it better for everybody, and especially if the tax office ever needs to come and look at your stuff. So opening the business bank account is probably the next most important step. Something else we didn't talk about was you also need to make sure that you have all the relevant subscriptions or memberships or licenses to trade. Sometimes people just forget and they just go, I didn't know I need to have that. And ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So if a mom and decide you want to bake some stuff and you want to sell it at the local coffee shop, you need to make sure that your kitchen is approved, that you can actually provide stuff to the public from your kitchen, and that it applies or complies with health and safety regulations.
And that's happening a fair bit these days
Yeah.
with, now mums, for example, the thing, I could probably, I could cook something and can sell it on the side because the kids are in school and whatnot. They need to, of course, check the council for
yeah. Or if you're running a business from home and you're expecting to see a lot of customers at your house,
Yeah.
you also need to get permission from your council to make sure you've got enough parking, that your neighbours aren't going to get upset about it.
Yes.
It's just things that we just don't think about
Yeah.
until somebody complains and you go, wish I had known about that,
Yeah.
or wish somebody had said, but yeah, those are the important things.
And if you're having your meetings, come to serviced offices
Come to
and,
serviced
and
office,
have,
that
have
takes that
a
away.
better image.
Yep.
It's good. So what else do you think it's important to starting up a business? In that case, should we get Jamie to say a few more words?
Well, no, I think I'm clearly dealing with more commercial businesses than generally people trying to maybe do catering business from home. But in my experience, I think that there aren't many businesses I deal with that are setting up a business to run that business until retirement. A lot of people I see are setting up a business with the view to growing something that will be attractive for somebody else to purchase.
Yeah.
Further down the line, might be 5 years, might be 10 years, might be 1 year. It really depends.
Strategy,
But the exit strategy is key, which links into good advice at the front end, specifically from a tax perspective as well. Because if you don't have the correct ownership around a business, even though it's worth nothing at the outset, you need to imagine it's worth something at some point and how you would potentially exit that business if that's your plan. So I think that's something that's quite important. I think that people need to consider, again, depending on what their end game is. And actually, even if it's not their end game, you never know what might happen. If you become good enough at what you're doing, somebody will want to stop you doing it.
Or want to be part of it.
Or want to be part of it. One of the two, yeah.
Positive and negative there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool. Do we have any parting words or maybe tips or something like that for small business owners? What are the 3 essential things you think they need to do to get going?
The need to get going. First of all, make sure you have the right business structure. Make sure that you have the right business name, and then get all the right tax
The regulations.
regulations. So it's your ABN, your GST, pay-as-you-go withholding, especially if you're going to employ some staff. And pay someone to help you in the beginning because it's worth it in the end.
One of the next case studies we've got is talking about MYOB versus Xero and other platforms. So that's going to be something that'll be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Somebody would say, the first person you employ in your business is your bookkeeper.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. The first person you employ is your marketing person, because you don't have any books to keep it to start off with, and you haven't made money yet.
Yeah.
So get your marketing person first, and then your bookkeeper.
And then the mindset, right?
And the mindset.
Yeah, so I think from a mindset point of view, I mean, leaving the business model aside, I mean, just from your own sort of personal self, having the goals of the business, the vision and also the values, having those non-negotiable items written down on a piece of paper, I think is one of the most crucial elements to starting a business, because these are the things that are going to drive you day to day. It's not going to be some arbitrary document that sits in your top drawer. It's going to be you, the individual, you, the entrepreneur. So having a good idea and a good sense of those 3 things, I think, is an excellent place to start.
Thank you.
I guess my parting comment would be, and a word of advice would be to, depending on your business model, do a detailed cash flow. Because a business can make money on paper, but if the timing's wrong, it can fall over very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So to understand the dynamics of the likely payment terms of your clients, when you might do a transaction then, but when will you get the money? And just to understand your business from that perspective, because cash is king.
And have a pessimistic
Okay,
point of view, or is it more
Realistic, I would say.
realistic?
I think you always need a buffer in there, even with realism, because Forge Group is one example of something people wouldn't have expected 6-9 months ago.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a buffer as well as realism, but cash flow, not just P&L, cash flow is important.
Yeah. Thank you. I think there's a lot that the viewers are going to get out of this. And I look forward to having the next chat next month with more case studies.
Great.
Thank you, Jamie. Daniel.
Thank you.
Sonja.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.